Lesson 2. Let me ask you something. What happens while you're waiting to have a difficult conversation? You might think nothing. The conversation hasn't happened, so technically nothing has changed. But is that really true? Think about the conversation you identified in the last session. You haven't had it, but has the situation stayed exactly where it was? Or has something else happened? Perhaps you've become more irritated. You started making assumptions. You've replayed situations in your head. You've complained about the person to someone else. You've started withdrawing. Maybe you've become less trusting. Maybe you've taken on work that someone else should have handled. Maybe you've stopped saying what you really think. The conversation hasn't happened, but something has been happening, and that's what we're going to look at today. Because sometimes the most expensive conversation is the one we keep postponing. Now you have two choices. A, have the conversation. B, wait another month. Let's try something. Imagine the conversation you're avoiding is with someone at work. Maybe they keep missing deadlines. Maybe their behavior is affecting your team. Maybe they've been speaking to you disrespectfully. Maybe you've been carrying their workload because it is easier than confronting the issue. Now you have two choices. You can have the conversation or you can wait another month. Don't answer yet. Let's look at what each choice actually costs. Let's look at option A. Have the conversation. If you have the conversation, there may be discomfort. They may not agree with you. They may become defensive. You may stumble over your own words. You may leave the conversation wondering whether you handled it well. That's real. Difficult conversations can carry an emotional cost. But now let's look at the other choice. Now, waiting can feel easier. For the next few minutes, you feel relieved. You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to risk the awkwardness. You get to go back to your day. And that's precisely why avoidance can become so powerful. It gives you immediate relief. But immediate relief is not the same thing as long-term resolution. Here's the distinction I want you to remember. Relief is not resolution. Avoiding the conversation may reduce the discomfort you're feeling right now, but it doesn't necessarily resolve the problem that created the discomfort. And sometimes, while you're enjoying the relief, the cost is quietly accumulating. Let's look at the compounding cost. Think about a tiny crack in a wall. You notice it. It's small. You tell yourself, I'll get that repaired. A month later, it's still there. Another month passes. Now perhaps the crack has spread out a little bit. The wall hasn't collapsed. So you tell yourself, see, it's fine. But the absence of collapse doesn't mean there is no problem. Some problems don't explode, they compound. Difficult conversations can be like that. One missed deadline, one unresolved disagreement, one piece of feedback left unsaid, one boundary you didn't set. one behavior you tolerated, one assumption you never challenged. Individually, they may seem manageable, but repeatedly over time, they can change your relationship. Let's meet Priya. Priya manages a high-performing team. Now, one of her strongest team members, Neha, has one behavior that is becoming increasingly disruptive. She interrupts people. Not occasionally, repeatedly. Priya notices it. Other team members also notice it. But Priya doesn't say anything. Why? Because Neha is a high performer. And Priya tells herself she's valuable. I don't want to demotivate her. Maybe she'll realize it's not serious enough to make an issue out of it. So Priya says nothing. 6 weeks later, Neha's behavior hasn't changed, but everyone else's behavior has. One team member starts speaking less. Another starts avoiding meetings. People stop challenging ideas. Priya becomes increasingly frustrated and something else has happened. Priya starts viewing Neha as difficult. Priya has started thinking of Neha differently. She's no longer thinking Neha interrupts. She's thinking Neha is difficult. Do you see the shift? A behavior has become a judgment about a person. And once that happens, the next conversation becomes much harder. Now imagine you are Priya. You finally decided you have to address it. But now, you're not addressing one interruption, you're addressing 6 weeks of frustration. 6 weeks of accumulated emotion, 6 weeks of assumptions, and perhaps 6 weeks of stories you've been telling yourself about Neha's intentions. This is one of the hidden costs of avoidance. The conversation you postpone today may become a much harder conversation tomorrow. This isn't something we've observed in training rooms. Research on unwanted conversation topics has found that people commonly avoid topics because of concerns about privacy or conflict. The emotional response can differ depending on the motivation. Privacy concerns have been associated with more inhibiting emotions such as anxiety, while conflict concerns have been associated with more activating responses such as annoyance. The research included multiple studies involving more than 3,200 participants. And workplace research has found that people who strongly value preserving interpersonal harmony can anticipate relationship costs from confrontation, which can contribute to conflict avoidance. So when someone says, I just don't want to create a problem, there may be something very real underneath that sentence. They may be protecting a relationship. They may be protecting their own emotional comfort. They may be protecting their image. Or they may simply not know how to approach the conversation. And that distinction matters. Now, I want to make something very clear. I'm not suggesting that every difficult conversation must happen immediately. There are times when waiting is wise. You may need more information. You may be too emotionally activated. The other person may not be in a state to listen. There may be a genuine power or safety concern. Or perhaps the issue simply isn't important enough to address. The goal isn't have every difficult conversation. The goal is become intentional about. Let's bring this closer to home. When you avoid an important conversation, there can be three different tasks. The first is what happens inside you. The second is what happens between you and the other person. And the third is what happens around the work or the situation itself. And sometimes the performance problem you're trying to avoid addressing is creating an even bigger performance problem because nobody is addressing it. Now we're going to make this real. Take the conversation you've been avoiding, and I want you to map its cost. Write down 4 things. What is this avoidance costing me emotionally? I'll repeat. What is this avoidance costing me emotionally? Two. What is it costing the relationship? 3. What is it costing my work, performance, or results? 4. What is it costing the other person? I want you to pause the video here and write down your answers to these questions. That 4th question matters because sometimes we think, I'm avoiding this to protect them. But are we? Could our silence actually be preventing them from knowing something they need to know? Could we be denying them an opportunity to change? Now, here's a question I want you to sit with. Who is paying the price for my silence? Maybe it's you. Maybe it's them. Maybe it's both of you. Maybe it's the entire team. Maybe it's the customer. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's a future version of you who will eventually have to deal with a much bigger problem. That's uncomfortable? Good. Stay with it. Let's run a quick simulation. You're the manager. Your employee has missed 3 deadlines. You avoided addressing it. Today, the client has escalated. Now you have 10 minutes before the client call. What are you thinking? Now ask yourself, could this conversation have been easier 6 weeks ago? Probably. That's the point. Now, the cost of avoidance isn't always visible when you make the decision to avoid. That's what makes it dangerous. You experience the benefit immediately. Relief. No awkwardness, no confrontation, no uncertainty. But the cost may appear later. And by then, you may be paying interest. Think of avoidance like putting an uncomfortable conversation on a credit card. You get the relief today, but the bill doesn't disappear. Sometimes it comes back with interest. More frustration, more emotion, more history, more people involved, more consequences. And now You're no longer having the original conversation. You're having the conversation plus everything that accumulated because you didn't have it earlier. Now, the goal isn't confrontation. The goal is responsible communication. And this is where I want you to change the way you think about difficult conversations. This isn't about becoming confrontational. It isn't about saying everything you think. It isn't about speaking your truth without considering the impact on someone else. And it certainly isn't about winning. A difficult conversation is not successful because you finally said what you wanted to say. It is successful when you create the possibility of clarity, understanding, accountability, or change while preserving dignity. That's a much higher standard. Now return to your conversation and finish this sentence. If I continue avoiding this conversation for another 6 months, I am likely to. Now finish this one. If I address it thoughtfully, the best realistic outcome could be. And finally, what is one thing I need to understand before I decide how to approach this conversation? Now, don't decide what to say yet. We're not there. We're learning to think before we speak. Now, before the next lesson, I want you to do something very simple. Don't have the conversation yet. Instead, observe the cost. For the next 24 hours, notice every consequence connected to the issue you're avoiding. Maybe you feel irritated, maybe you avoid someone, maybe you complain, maybe you redo their work, maybe you stay silent in a meeting, maybe you think about it when you're trying to sleep. Maybe you notice that you're behaving differently towards the person. Record it. We are building evidence, not assumptions. Evidence. Now, this is a workbook, the hidden cost map, about the conversation you are avoiding. Okay? It has an emotional cost, a relationship cost, it has a work performance cost, it has cost to the other person, potential cost if nothing changes, what I may gain by addressing it. So go ahead and fill in your responses here. There's something powerful about seeing a cost clearly, because once you see it, you have a choice. You can still decide not to have the conversation, but now it's a conscious decision, not an automatic one. And that distinction matters, because the goal of this program isn't to turn you into someone who confronts everything. It is to help you become someone who can choose consciously. Approach, postpone, or walk away with clarity, with intention, and with respect. Next, we're going to look at something even more important, because understanding the cost of avoidance still doesn't tell us why some conversations feel so difficult. For that, we need to look at what happens inside us before we ever say the first word. That's where the real conversation begins.